Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back into another edition of Jake's Takes. I am your host, Jake Masucci, and today I'm super excited for part two of our March Madness Extravaganza. Today I got on my guy, Drew Comer. We're going to talk about contenders and pretenders. We're going to jump around the bracket, and I'll also give you guys Drew's final four pick and then my final four pick as well. So without further ado, I'm going to cue the music. All right. Welcome back into the show. And I am super excited to be joined for part two of the March Madness podcasts with my guy, Drew Comer. He is back with us. And first time he's doing college basketball in a while, but we've been talking about it all year. And I'm really, really excited to have him on. Drew, welcome back into the show, man.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I don't think I've been on since either baseball or basketball, over a year ago now. So good to be
Yeah.
back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we've talked about it all year. This college basketball season has been flat out wild. And I just did like a huge part one with Asher Smith. We went through everything. I think we recorded like 2 hours and a half of just bracket stuff. So we got to narrow it down. We got to get the audience a better focus. We're going to talk about contenders and pretenders. And for the most part, it's going to be the 2 seeds, 3 seeds, 4 seeds. Talk about like if they got a chance to make it to that next round. So, Drew, I'm pumped for this. I'm ready to go team
Same
by
here, man.
team.
Let's do it.
We'll do it. We'll do it. I'm super excited. The first team I want to talk about, let me share my screen real quick just so we got the bracket in front of us to make it a lot easier. So, the first team I want to discuss here is let's start with Michigan State. Okay. That's where you're going to school now. The last time the audience saw you, you were going to Purdue. Now you're doing your master's program within Michigan State. So you focused on this team a lot throughout the season. So talk to me about your thoughts on Michigan State and if you feel like they're a pretender in this tournament or a contender.
Yeah. So, one of the purest passers in the country, Jeremy Fears. I know he's gotten quite a bit of hate lately for some of the dirty play that he's been involved in. But all of that aside, one of the best players in the country, setting his teammates up. Not a great team offensively, having watched them quite a bit. Sometimes they'll struggle to knock down threes, and that'll need to come up big in the tournament if they want to go far. But you got a trio with Kohler and Cooper, down low, who can rebound really well. Kohler can shoot the ball pretty well. Scott, they need to shoot, a little bit better than he has lately. But they went 25-7, and I have them going to the Elite Eight, where they're going to play a tough Duke team if they make it that far. So very high on them. Want to keep it as unbiased as possible. I think they need to break out of the offensive woes. And, we just saw them lose to UCLA. On the flip side, need to keep the defensive end as one of their strong points. So got to be consistent with that as well and shoot the ball better if they want to go far in this.
Yeah, definitely a contender here. I mean, Izzo does not back down in March. He's Mr. March for a reason, right? And it's a really interesting team from Michigan State. I've talked about it a lot this year. Like, it's been ups and downs. There's felt like there's been something missing throughout the whole year with Michigan State. I really like the draw they got, playing North Dakota State in this first game. I really think that's an easy W to get right by. Again, that 3-14 seed can sometimes be a little bit of a problem. So great draw here for North Dakota State. I see them getting out of that game pretty easily. This South Florida game is interesting because I think I have South Florida going by Louisville.
I do as well.
We'll probably talk about Louisville a little later. But like, if you're looking at that second round game, it's going to be interesting because South Florida plays at a really fast pace. And Michigan State likes to play at that fast pace too. So it'd be very up and down. I think Michigan State's a little too big for South Florida, but South Florida is a really exciting team that could push Michigan State to the limit. And that game I'm really looking forward to because it might answer a ton of questions like, hey, this team actually can make the Elite Eight. They actually can get to that spot and play a really tough game in Duke. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on a potential matchup with UConn in the Sweet 16. Um, I think that's a really interesting matchup with two teams that are very similar. So talk to me why you think Michigan State would actually get over the hump and beat a team like you.
So UConn has been very up and down this year. We've seen them, play great basketball, and then recently, haven't been playing so well. But I mean, their trio was Solo Ball and Carabana Senior, who's been there for a long time, played in a national championship game. Hurley, a great coach. We've seen it throughout the years. I just don't think this team has been consistent enough to make a run like they have in previous years. A couple of years ago, we saw a star-studded team with lots of lottery picks and NBA players now go head to head with Purdue in the championship game, and we've seen them make runs before. But I don't think this team is equipped, just based on their consistency this season, to make a run like they have previously, and that's why I think Michigan State has been a little more consistent, and they played in a tougher conference, in my opinion. With Michigan, Illinois, Nebraska, Purdue, all there, lots of tough matchups, and they just were more physical. And I do like the UConn team, but I just don't see it like I have in previous years.
That's fair. That's completely fair. I think also too, the thing I kind of liked you talking about when you talked about state at the beginning was the bigs are playing better. Like Carson Cooper had a great finish to the season, and Kohler had some monster games, especially that Michigan game at Chrysler. He played great in that game. I really think the only way that state would be able to come out of that game is those bigs playing awesome, because UConn, like, it's very much Travis Reed. He kind of leads the way. He creates things, but he has a tendency to get into foul trouble,
Yes.
and that's something that can absolutely kill them because their backup big, while he's 7 foot and causes a lot of space and causes problems for opponents defensively, he's still really inexperienced, and the offense just kind of gets out of flow. That's been UConn's problem. It's not the offense that we've seen throughout that we're used accustomed to seeing, right? And Jeremy Fears would have to just play like the best player in that game. There's so many people on UConn that can take the mantle and become that. Jeremy Fears would have to be the best player on the floor for all 40 minutes for that to happen. That would be an awesome game. I'm really
Absolutely. I
rooting.
I
Yeah.
agree. I would love to see that, honestly, but it's March, anything can happen. So again, even getting past that South Florida team, which you and I both have as an upset over Louisville, um,
Hmm.
like you said, with the pace, offensive rebounding is going to be huge, not giving up second chance points, just like it is for most teams. So I would love to see that matchup. We'll see if we can get there.
Yeah, super excited for Michigan State. They're definitely the team to watch out of that region. So I asked you to look at a couple other teams out of this region. That's Louisville, Kansas, and St. John's. For you, like, and the research that you were looking at and these teams, like, what team out of these three do you feel comfortable saying, "Oh, this team could make a run in this bracket"?
I like St. John's making a run. I think they played very well in the Big East this year. Again, matching up with UConn a couple of times and beating them recently. But I think they're equipped. Patino's been around the block. He's great head coach. And again, when you have a coach like that, you have I think they have Zuby Ejiofor is a great, big for them. I think he won Big East Defensive Player of the Year. So great defensive team there, which can get you places in March. I know a lot of people focus on the offensive end of the ball, with teams like Bama and Illinois and Kentucky in recent years, but the defensive end of the ball is really big too. And I think if they can match up against some of these bigger offensive juggernauts, and hold them to, keep them low scoring, I think they have a great shot at making a run. So that's the team I would choose out of that pack.
Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement. With Louisville and Kansas, like, Louisville's dealing with Michael Brown possibly not playing in this tournament, which kills their offense and makes them stagnant and stuff. And then Kansas, we've had the Darren Peterson questions all year. It's just like there's just a lot of question marks with that team. You can't really put a full trust in them. St. John's has been there. They struggled at the beginning of the year and then really figured it out down the stretch and dominated the Big East down the stretch. So I completely agree. They're probably the best contender when you're looking
Yeah.
at it
And
from
just to
that region.
just to touch on Kansas a little bit, I don't think it's the players at all. I think they have a great lineup. Like you mentioned, Peterson, he'll be a top 3 pick in the NBA. Trey White is there, Flory Badunga.
Yep.
So it's not the players in my opinion, that's the problem. It's, the chemistry hasn't been there. They haven't been playing together all year. Some of these guys have been out with injuries. Peterson's been out, 15 plus games this year. Um, so it's really, can they put it together? Can they get that chemistry together when it matters late in the season like this? And I just don't think they can. So that's what makes me pick St. John's over Kansas this year.
That's fair. I like it. I like it a lot. Any noise on UCLA? We watched them in that tournament, and they're the ones that ended Michigan State in that
Yeah.
Big Ten tournament. So, any noise on them or no?
Yeah, so they're a 7 seed this year, and we came in, they picked up Donovan Dent in the transfer portal from New Mexico State last year, who, very solid offensive production last year. And then this year, kind of, we saw him become more of a facilitator passer. And Bilodeau, their big, is, going to be a huge piece for that run. I think he's averaging 18 plus points a game. And, we saw both of them get banged up a little bit in the
Hmm.
Big Ten tournaments. Not sure what the status is there. I'm sure they're monitoring that. But if those guys are healthy, I have them making the Sweet 16, running into Michigan State and losing, but I have them making a little bit of a run. So I like them as a 7 seed.
So you have them over UConn. You're not a
I
UConn
do.
guy. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I have them over
Okay.
UConn too. Yep.
I like that. I like that. Very interesting. UCLA looked really good in that Big Ten tournament, and that's why, like, even though we played UCF, and I like how UCF plays, they have a lot of good players. I just feel like the way UCLA is playing, Donovan Dent has looked almost as good as he did last year at New Mexico, and then you got guys like Sky Clark, guys like Tyler Perry, who the true freshman that's looked awesome for them down the stretch. He was awesome in that Michigan State game. They got guys that are really stepping up, and I think they're hitting their stride at the right moment. So I agree with you completely. They're interesting. I don't know if I pick them Sweet 16, but I like them getting past that UCF. So
It's March. You never
it's
know.
March. Yep, that's true. That is true. Let's go to the South region. I want to talk about Vandy a little bit. They looked awesome in that SEC championship game. Really a thrilling game. They ended up losing to Arkansas in that game. But talk to me about what you've seen from Vandy so far this year.
So Vandy's another team I really like. I watched a little bit of them. Again, very high scoring team. Tyler Tanner has just been incredible. I mean, he's averaging 19 points a game, close to 40% from 3. And when you have a guard like that in March, I know we talk about, who's that one player that's going to step up? Well, he stepped up all year. And then they also have Duke Miles, a little bit more experience, another very solid guard for that front court. So I have them actually beating Florida in the Sweet 16. And I know that's a huge pick, but out of the 1 seeds, when I looked at them, Florida's the team that I just think is the most beatable. And I think Vanderbilt has put together games against big teams this year, being in such a tough SEC conference. I think the key thing for them is, staying out of foul trouble and then rebounding the ball. They're not very big. And so making sure that they grab offensive rebounds, not give up second chance points, and stay out of foul trouble are their keys for success. Again, I like them making a run, so one of the teams I'm gonna look out for.
I love it. I actually have the same pick. So I
Love it.
love it. Vandy's awesome.
Yep.
They've been really good, and I'm super excited for them. I know another team you're really high on is Illinois. Okay, so I want to give you the floor here, let you talk about Illinois because I've been hearing it a lot off camera, and I'm excited for you to share it here.
I love Illinois. I have them going to the Final Four. I almost wanted them to go to the championship, but I don't, it's tough to get there. So I do have them reaching the Final Four. A guy that we, came out of nowhere, Keaton Wagler, 18 points a game this year, took over when Boswell, broke his hand, was out for a little bit, and really kind of took over that team. And they have a lot of guys, Mirkovic, the Ivisic brothers, Andrei Stojakovic, a lot of, guys who can score, but that's been the thing is great offensively, but can they put it together defensively? I saw them play a couple times this year, Purdue and Michigan State. Played very well against Purdue, and then Michigan State lost in overtime. But the defensive end is the concern, and if they're gonna reach the Final Four, they gotta string together some stops. I'm not worried about them offensively. They've proven it time and time again. They're averaging 84 points a game offensively and shoot a ton of threes. And I know sometimes that isn't successful. You know very well with Kentucky a few years ago, it doesn't matter if you shoot a lot of threes, you got to hit them in March. And so, they'll take a lot, but they're going to have to hit some if they want to make a run. Love this team. Keen Wagler is going to be a huge name to look out for, and he's going to want to improve his draft stock as well. So this is the spotlight for him. Mirkovic, again, love him as well. He can knock down some threes. And then the Ivisic brothers, everyone can shoot on this team, it feels like. And every time I've watched them, it's like you can't leave anybody, guards, bigs, you can't leave them because they'll knock down shots. And they've proven that this year. So my team, them and Iowa State, which I'm sure we'll get to, are my two favorite teams in this tournament to watch out for. So
Yeah. Illinois is a super fun team. I love their roster. I've told you multiple times, and I've said it off camera a lot, but David Mirkovic is my favorite prospect. I love that guy. He's so fun to watch. He's the type of guy where the ball's always moving. He's making quick decisions. He's a great passer. He's a big that's 6'8", that's always crashing the glass, and he just creates plays for others. And then Keenan Wagler, awesome player, right? My concern, of course, is the defense. It hasn't been the greatest defensively. I think Kylan Boswell really helps out with that defense. He's one of my favorite players. He's been one of my favorite players for the past few years, and he's gotten so much better. I think I was talking to someone about this off camera, but I remember our game plan on him was we would normally go under the screen and force him to shoot that three. And last year he couldn't hit that shot. Well, this year he's hitting that shot at a super high clip, and he's been awesome shooting that shot. So you can just see he's a worker and he gets a lot better. Like that's something that I really, really like out of him. It's why I believe in this Illinois team a little more, but they're running into Houston. And that's what concerns me here. So talk to me about why you see them getting past a team like Houston.
I love Houston too. I mean, Kingston Flemings, they have young guys, a lot of freshmen this year, which is my concern with that team is you run into these programs that build up and Houston's been one of the teams lately that's really built, up seniors and experience. And this is the year where they're young, and so again, I think they'll make a run. They have a decent path to hit Illinois, but there's a reason they're a 2 seed and not a 1 seed. They struggled down the stretch a little bit, and facing teams like that, Houston likes to keep it low scoring. If they run into Illinois, they're gonna have to guard very well, limit threes, and also pick it up offensively because we've seen Flemings is, one of their guys and he's stepped up in big games, but, he needs to take more of an offensive role. I know he's been pass first lately. I think he needs to shoot the ball a little bit more. They haven't made it to a championship. They haven't won a championship. They made the Final Four multiple times in recent years, but can they overcome the hump? I'm gonna say no again this year just because of that experience.
Okay. I like it. I like it. Last team out of this bracket is Nebraska. Just to touch on North Carolina, I'll touch on them for a second, but losing Caleb Wilson, just killer. Like absolutely killer. They were going to be such a fun team to watch. I love Henry Visar on that team. And of course, they get a terrible matchup in VCU because VCU is hot. They just won the Atlantic 10 and looked awesome in that tournament. Really just killer for North Carolina. I feel bad because I feel like Hubert Davis is doing a great job with that program, bringing in some really elite guys. So I'm hoping they're able to reload next year because I am excited about their future. Looking at Nebraska and Troy here, I have watched like on and off of Nebraska, and I feel like you've watched a little bit more. So talk to me about your thoughts on Nebraska and if you actually think they're a contender or pretender.
So I'm gonna say pretender. They started out the year 20, great best start in program history. They have Bryce Sanford, who averages 18 points a game and shoots 40% from three. they have guys, they chuck up a lot of threes, just like some other teams we've talked about. Um, this was a tough conference. They competed this year, and it was awesome to see, that 20-0 start. No one was expecting Nebraska to come out of the gates like that. They played teams very close. They beat Michigan State early on, beat a lot of good teams early on, and kept things close. They shoot a lot of threes. They're gonna have to catch fire if they wanna make a run, and I just don't see that happening. I have them losing second round to Vanderbilt, who we just talked about, but they've finished the season 6-6 after that 20-0 start. And one of my biggest factors in March Madness in the tournament is, are you going into the tournament hot? Did you play well in your conference tournament? Did you play well down the stretch in your conference play? And going 6-6 down the stretch for me just doesn't cut it. I don't think that's a great, start into the tournament. I would love to see them go far just because they're a Big Ten school. I've watched a lot of them. But for example, we just saw a Wisconsin team get really hot in the Big Ten tournament. And for that reason, and I'm sure we'll touch on them too, but I have them going far. Nebraska, not so much. I have them losing second round.
Okay. I like it. I like it. Nebraska is a really interesting team because, like, they're the only Power 5 team that has not won a tournament game, you know? So, like, there's a lot of pressure on this game for them to get this one done, and Troy's a really scary team for them to even do that. So, really interesting there. I am excited to see how Nebraska fares. So, let's move into the West, okay? You touched on Wisconsin here. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on Wisconsin. Jonathan Blackwell, of course, and Boyd have been awesome.
Yes, those two alone, I think, average maybe 40 plus points a game for this Wisconsin team. And I watched a few of their games in the Big Ten tournament. And are they good? Can they hit shots? Can they hit threes? I know Nick Boyd struggled a little bit in their last game, but they're hot. And like I just talked about, if you're a hot team going into March, it doesn't matter if you're a 5 seed like they are, if you're a 11 seed, if you're a 1 seed, it doesn't matter. If you're hot going into March, you're playing good ball when it matters. You're hitting shots. My biggest question is, can they overcome Arkansas and Arizona if they get to that point? Arkansas is a very solid team. Acuff has been playing out of his
Talk
mind.
about a hot team, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they've been really hot. And then Arizona, just we've seen it. They're a 1 seed for a reason. They're one of the best teams in the country. So that's my biggest concern for them. It's not so much their play. It's like, are they going to run into another hot team like Arkansas or Arizona who can easily knock them off if they have an off game? So I love the two guards. Great play from them. They have bigs that can shoot as well, but once you run into teams like that, you never know what's going to happen. So I like them making the Sweet 16 and beating Arkansas, but I don't see them getting past Arizona.
Are you nervous about High Point at all?
I'm not. I watched
Okay.
them. They played Purdue, I think 2 years ago now, and it's a fun team. They've made it a couple of times the last few years, and it's not a 12 seed that I see beating a 5 seed.
Okay.
There's 12, 11, 12, 13 seeds every year that you're like, "Oh, watch out for this team." I don't see it. I didn't watch much of them. I haven't looked into them too much, but I think just for the sole point of Wisconsin playing at the level they're at right now, I don't see them losing.
I like that. I like that. So you clearly talked about Arkansas here, another hot team. They're very similar to Wisconsin, definitely a contender. I feel like whoever you put out of that game is a serious contender if you're looking at that Sweet 16 against Arizona. Like that's going to be a tough game for Zona to deal with two hot teams that potentially could cause some problems, right? So let's move to the bottom of the bracket. The two teams I mainly want to discuss out of the bottom are Purdue and Gonzaga. So I'll let you take the floor on Purdue since it's your alma mater. So
Yeah, so I've watched Purdue basketball for 4 years. I've seen them lose to a 16 seed, and I've seen them make the championship. So I truly have no idea what to expect from them. Talk about a hot team. They have one of the best guards in the country in Braden Smith, another great passer just like Fears. I think those two are at lead the country in assists if I remember correctly, but they're gonna need their other seniors to step up. Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman Wren are their two other big guys, and lots of experience. They've been in the tournament all 4 years, and it's not in today's college basketball, you don't see 3 seniors on the same team make the tournament and beat play at this high of a level like we do. I don't even know if we'll ever see it again. I mean, but Braden Smith, if he can get his scoring going, I know he's chasing that assist record right now. He's 2 away, which he should hit, as long as he stays healthy in the first game. Fletcher Lawyer's been shooting the ball great. He had a slump in the middle of the year, but he overcame that. He's been shooting awesome, hitting about 3 to 4 3-pointers a game, which is huge for this team because when you looked at them, they're preseason number 1, and the reason they're preseason number 1 is Braden Smith, but also they have guys that can shoot the ball.
Yeah.
CJ Cox, another one of those guys. I know you love Jack Benner, who comes off the bench and plays that 4 behind Trey Kaufman-Renn. Um, Another guy that I want to watch out for in this tournament is Oscar Clough has been rebounding the ball out of his mind. As if he can stay out of foul trouble, he's been grabbing boards like no one else, I've seen lately. And so if they can maintain that high level, they just came off a win against Michigan in the Big Ten championship. Um, but again, I've seen every bit of them losing to a 16 seed my freshman year and then, making the championship the next year. And so it's a very volatile team. I have them going to the Elite Eight and losing to Arizona. I would love to see that matchup. I think Arizona's got a tough path to the Final Four. I have them reaching it, but it's not going to be easy if you run into teams we've talked about like Purdue or Arkansas, um, you know, or Wisconsin even. So I like Purdue to the Elite Eight. Again, it's a team. It's up in the air. They played well lately, but they've also lost some really bad games.
Yeah. Talk to me about the matchup with Gonzaga. I think that's the one that a lot of people are going to have in their Sweet 16, Purdue playing Gonzaga. And the thing is like, we haven't seen Gonzaga play those elite teams in a while. We saw them play Michigan and get absolutely throttled, right? And I think that's the question we're going to have a lot with the Zags going up against Purdue. But talk to me about what you think as well.
Yeah, so Gonzaga is one of those teams that's very strong defensively. They're top 20 in almost every defensive metric, and so they're playing great on that end of the ball, which is very important. Green Make is a senior who's been with the program, all 4 years. He's playing great ball, 20 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, 57% from the field, one of the highest field goal percentages in the country. And he can knock down some threes. And so I think the biggest struggle for Gonzaga really has been shooting the ball from 3. If they can find a way to scrap around and hit some threes in this tournament, they got an easy matchup first round, hopefully, and then you run into BYU or Texas NC State. BYU is, riddled with injuries. DeBonce has been great, but I think Gonzaga wins that game if they make it.
Yeah.
So I think if they can knock down some threes and they can maintain that level of success on the defensive end, they're poised for a run. In terms of the matchup with Purdue, if they run into each other, Purdue's had Gonzaga's number lately. They beat them in the Sweet 16 a couple of years ago, and they've beat them in a couple tournaments. Uh, you know, I think they beat them in Maui or Bahamas or whatever.
Yeah.
They've had success against them. And when you talk about, players, they're not rotating. Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Renn, they've played this Gonzaga team multiple times. It's not like this is a unfamiliar opponent. So I like Purdue in that matchup. I like Gonzaga too, but again, like you said, they haven't really ran up against teams that scare me. So
Mhm. Yeah, completely fair. And it's no one's fault too. Like they're going to the Pac-12 next year. It might change a little bit, but with Gonzaga and Purdue, the matchup's really going to be like about those bigs, and that's kind of what I'm excited for. Like Kaufman, Rem, and Clough going up against Graham EK and the Gonzaga bigs. Like I'm really excited for that, and I just want that matchup because I think it'd
me
be a
too.
really fun game, and I don't know who would win that game. So I'm excited for that part of the bracket for sure. Let's move into the Midwest. So the contenders or pretenders on here. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Alabama because Alabama's a really interesting team. talk about a team that's really good at offense and really
Mhm.
good and really bad at defense. That's Alabama. They
Right.
play at that frantic pace.
This honestly reminds me of the Kentucky team we saw a couple years ago. They lead the country in three-pointers attempted. They make a lot of them, but and they don't turn the ball over very frequently, which is a huge plus. With a team that plays at a pace like that, you'd expect them to turn the ball a little bit more than they do. LeBarian Philon, one of the best offensive players. He's like, you go from Mark Sears, who graduated one of the best scorers in that program history, right to the next one with LeBarian Philon, and he puts up 22 points a game, can knock down the threes. He battled injury a little bit this year, but there's four other players on that team, including Aiden Holloway, that average 10 plus points a game. Which how often do you see a team with multiple players averaging 10 plus? I think I just got news today that Holloway got arrested, so I'm not sure about
Yeah.
that situation. We'll have to keep an eye on it, but, um, high scoring offense, they put up 92 points a game, but it's the defensive end. Like, can they keep pace defensively with these teams that run a more consistent offense, have a better flow rather than just pushing the ball and finding the three-point shot, So, reminds me a lot of Kentucky, which a couple years ago, which who I had really going really far. But again, it's hit or miss. If you're not hitting shots, you might lose in the first round. And I don't know too much about Hofstra, but if Alabama can't shoot in the first round, look at that as a potential upset. So I like them to the elite or to the Sweet 16, losing to Michigan, who we all know has played very good basketball. But again, it's all dependent on their guards and hitting threes.
Yeah. Um, it's been really interesting with Bama, like they've competed with the best. They've played that unbelievable out of conference schedule. So I'm excited to see it. And especially with this Aiden Holloway news. I mean, like that's big time news, like will he play, possession of marijuana, like I don't know, that'll be really interesting to see how they figure that out and move on from that. So looking at the bottom of the bracket, out of Tennessee, Virginia, and Kentucky. These are all teams that are really interesting because I don't think a lot of people centered in on them because Tennessee and Kentucky weren't up to expectations. And then Virginia just kind of came out of nowhere, but didn't have a guy that people were like, whoa, this is like super fun. I got to turn on the TV right now. So, which one do you like the most out of these three teams?
So out of this pack, I like Tennessee the most. I know we saw Kentucky, their preseason hype. They had guys, Otega Owe, Colin Chandler, both great offensively. Still are, still a great team and could make a run. They turn the ball over a lot, but when looking at Tennessee, again, one of those teams with a great defense and they have offensive rebounds better than most teams that, I've watched this year. And so it's really a matter of like, can they get the ball and shoot it well? Like Colin
Yeah.
or Jacoby Gillespie and Nate Amen are two stars on that team. I know we talked about Amen, not long ago, but I really like him. He's averaging, I think, 20 plus points a game. It's a matter of like, can they shoot the ball? Well, they played so many good teams in that conference this year. Um, I'm not a huge fan of any of of these three teams. I know Virginia just played Duke close in their conference championship, but I'm not very high on Virginia either. Didn't watch a whole lot of them this year, but like you said, came out of nowhere, and sometimes that builds up. But if I'm looking at a second round matchup between Virginia and Tennessee, I'll take Tennessee, and then Kentucky is just it's the woes. I have them losing first round to Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Um, we'll see what happens, but I'm not a huge fan of any of these three teams. But if I had to pick one out of this pack, it's Tennessee.
Yeah, this is a really interesting pack because it's a lot of the teams where you're like, I don't know too much about and stuff. Virginia excites me. I really like their coach, Ryan Odom. He's done a great job. Of course, he was the coach at UMBC, and then he moved on to somewhere else before, and then he got the Virginia job. So he beat Virginia as a 16 seed, then ended up going there, and turning it around first year, which is just really, really impressive stuff. They probably should have won that game against Duke, like some incredible performances down the stretch for Duke to win that game. I really like them. Wright State's got no chance in that game. I talked about it. They just don't got it.
You know
Uh,
that too well.
yeah, yeah, I know that too. They were really good. They dominated Horizon. I give them all the credit in the world, but they're just not good enough to compete with a team like Virginia. And then you're running into Tennessee. And with Tennessee, I've been frustrated because Ahmet was supposed to be so much better. And I think that was a frustrating part. He's playing a lot better. He's starting to score at a higher clip. But the thing that bothers me is like he's just not really like physical. He doesn't go through people. And that really bugs me because he went to Rick Barnes, and Rick Barnes teaches people how to go through people. So that concerns me with his long-term development.
Yeah.
Um, the thing is I like your pick of Tennessee because Rick Barnes is the coach. He figures it out. He's a tournament coach. He's done it before. He can do that stuff. I
We
think that
saw it a
Virginia
couple years
Tennessee
ago
game, yeah,
with Connect, right?
yeah, exactly with Connect, right? So I think that Virginia and Tennessee game is a game you circle and be like, okay, whoever wins this game could be a dangerous team for probably your favorite team, Iowa State. I'll give you the floor on Iowa State if you want it.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, Illinois and Iowa State are my 2 teams. Iowa State, I actually have going to the national championship, and so
Wow.
I'm looking at this bracket
Whew.
right now. We just talked about Tennessee and Virginia. I don't think they're a problem at all for Iowa State. Iowa State has one of the best trios I've seen in recent history. Chilovich shoots 50% from 3, one of the best shooters in the country. Tamin
Mhm.
Lipsey, who was out for a little bit, puts up 13 and 5 assists a game. And then Josh Jefferson is just, I mean, he doesn't get talked about enough. And I know you look at NBA draft stock and this and that, and I know he's not the best shooter in the world, but he's averaging 16, 7, and 5 and is a potential All American, and nobody talks about it. And same with this Iowa State team, really. I know they lost some, they went 27 and 7. They started off, hot and lost a couple games down the stretch. Um, Second best shooting team in the Big 12. They need to hit free throws. They struggle from the line. They got to hit free throws and they got to rebound if they want to make it far, which I think they'll do. But I've watched so much. I watched Iowa State beat Purdue in person by 25, in West Lafayette. And so they're running into teams like that. They have played the competition. I know they've lost a couple of games. They've played Arizona a few times, Houston, but they have a great defense. They have a great shooter in Momcilovic, and Tamin Lipsey and Josh Jefferson are just 2 studs. And so I like this team all the way to the national championship. I know it's a hot take. They're a 2 seed. They're gonna play well, and I think they have one of the easier quadrants and regions out of any 2 seed. So I like them to the national championship this year.
I like it. I like it. They're a really volatile team. Like there's one game you'll see them play this Arizona game, and Jaden Bradley has to hit a game winner, and that game will be remembered because that was an awesome, awesome game. Um, and then there's another game where they lose to Texas Tech or they lose to one of the middle of the road Big 12 teams, right? So that's the thing that concerns me a little bit with Iowa State, just the ups and the downs that we've gone through throughout the season with them. And they're still a great defense. They're not as good as they've been in the past, which concerns me a little bit. I love their players. I love Lipsy. He plays so dang hard and has some unbelievable hustle plays. Like, hey, he's just such a
He's
fun
awesome.
watch. Yeah, he's awesome, dude. And then, like Joshua Jefferson, like you said, he does not get enough credit. He's a really steady scorer, can make plays off the dribble. He's really impressive. And then Momcilovic, awesome. He's
I
such
mean,
a sniper.
50% from 3, and he'll hit 3 or 4, 5 a game, and that doesn't seem like a lot because that's 12, 15 points, but he's averaging 17 on the year, and that's been the difference for them really. Because you take him out of the equation, they are not a great shooting team outside of him, really. And I know they have guys that cannot knock shots down, but he's their guy, and he's big, and he can not a great defender, but he's big and can hit down and hit shots. And when you reach March, I'm choosing, who do I want to have the ball down to win the game? Momcilovic is one of the guys in this tournament that I feel very confident knocking down a big shot. So
For
I look,
sure.
I look out for them. I have them going far for a reason. I've had bold predictions in the past, but I'm confident with this one.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. For me, the game I circle is that second round game. If they get past that second round, then I love them. I think they can make a definite run because I think they cause some problems for what Virginia wants to do in that Sweet 16 game. And then if you move into the Elite Eight, they're already hot. Running into a team like Michigan, they could definitely give them some problems. So I do like that as a dark horse team. I think Santa Clara is scary though. So it's a team to watch for sure.
And that's why I have them beating Kentucky. So,
Yep.
you're right. I
Yep.
think if Santa Clara beats Kentucky, they could be the 10th seed this year. We talk these lower seeds and they could be it. Santa Clara, I was watching the Selection Sunday show. They showed this team, and man, do they look like they play with a lot of passion, and they have some guys that want to be there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like everything you said about Iowa State is so true. But if you run into a team like that and it's not your night, that's just brutal. And that's how March goes. That's
yeah.
what makes it so fun. And that's why we love it. So before we go, I wanted to get your final four takes. I'll give you my final four as well, and we can kind of talk about what we got. So, what's your final four, and who do you have as your champion?
So I have Duke matching up with Illinois. I
Okay.
talked about Illinois quite a bit. Duke, I don't think we need to say much about him. I mean, Cam
Yeah.
Boozer is one of the best players in the country. Caleb Foster going down definitely doesn't help. But there's so many guys around that. I'm still very confident with Duke. And then in the West and Midwest regions, I have Arizona, Koa Pete. There's so many guys on that team you can look to for a shot. Jaden Bradley just hit a big shot recently. And then Iowa State. I have Iowa State beating Arizona, so my championship is Duke, Iowa State. I have Duke winning it all. I know that's a chalk take. I know they're the top team and they're a favorite, but look what happened last year.
Hmm.
Everyone wants to go against these one seeds, and my one seed this year to go against is Florida. I think Duke is gonna make a run. Like they've played very well. They lost last year in a tough game to Houston, right? And so they're on the venge and they're gonna want it this year. And Cam Boozer, he's proven himself. I think Caden Boozer, his brother, taking over at the guard position is gonna be, a big thing to watch out for. He's been playing incredible lately. I think he's been put up 10 plus points a game the last couple of games in Foster's absence. So I like those four teams. Iowa State, again, is my team to look out for, but Duke I have going all the way. So I'm curious to hear your take.
I like that you got Iowa State over Arizona, the revenge game. That would be such a fun game to see in that semifinal. So my final four, I have UConn beating Duke in the Elite Eight. Yep. I think that's like the game of the tournament. I think that's going to be an
I'm very
unbelievable
high on
game.
UConn. I
Yeah,
respect
I
them.
love
He's
UConn, and like I've talked about, it's the experience that they got. They have so many guys back that have played multiple years within that system.
Caravan,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
Caravan for sure. I think he's at the top of that list.
yeah,
I watched him, in the championship game a couple years ago, and he can shoot the ball. I mean,
mhm,
he can, and not only that, he 3 feet, 3, 4 feet behind the line, he can shoot the ball. So
yeah,
he
yeah.
can knock
No,
down shots. But
yeah, they're
anyways, continue.
unbelievable, and I think the the um the path they got is just nice. It's a good path because you don't know how healthy Bilodeau will be with UCLA, Michigan State. You can kind of run some things, and you have to make Fears be the best player on the floor. And I just don't know if he can do that in that scenario. I think it'll be a really close game, but I just don't think Fears will have enough to win it. I feel like he's doing it by himself. I just do. And then you're looking at Duke, and Duke, like Ngamba's already banged up a little bit. You got guard issues with Caleb Foster going to be out for this tournament. Like there's just some things with Duke, and yes, they've gotten by all these teams. I actually think St. John's is a scary matchup for them as well. They've gotten by all these teams, and I'm like, oh, now you're rolling against a UConn team that's got their motion offense rolling, and Braylon Mullins is probably hitting 5 threes. That scares me. So
Yeah.
that's why I got UConn. I have Vandy playing UConn in my
Wow,
final
I love
four.
it. I
Yep,
love
yep.
I love the Vandy pick.
Dude, Duke Miles is a stud, and he doesn't get talked about enough. He is that guy. I'm super excited about him. Um, I think Vandy's going to play Houston. I think it's going to be a crazy back and forth game. and I love their guard play. They've been awesome, Vandy, with Tyler Tanner and Duke Miles. And then don't forget about Tyler Nickel, 6'10", sniper. He hits every three, and he's a stud for them. I'm super excited about Vandy. They're my dark horse for that one. And then on the other side, I got Gonzaga versus Michigan. I think Michigan gets out of their bracket pretty handily. I have Iowa State losing early. That's what I'm concerned about with the Santa Clara game. I think Santa Clara is really good. So that's why I feel like Michigan can get past. I got them beating Virginia in that Elite Eight game. And then Gonzaga, I have that Gonzaga Purdue game. Again, I found it so hard to figure out who I thought was going to win that game. I thought Gonzaga would sneak out of that game, finally get over the woes of Purdue. And then I have Utah State shocking the world. I have
Wow.
Utah State beating Arizona and then beating Arkansas to make it
Wow.
into the Elite Eight. And I got Gonzaga beating Utah State after that. So Utah State's underseeded. They should not be a 9 seed, just flat out. You know, they are a really, really good basketball team. I don't know if they'll beat Arizona, but that game's going to go down to the wire. It's going to be such a tough game for Arizona. And I'm really excited for that. I got the Zags there. And then I got UConn versus Michigan in my final. And I got UConn beating Michigan.
Wow, UConn, another championship.
Yeah.
You really like Hurley. You know, they have a
Hurley's
good,
my guy, man.
they've been there. They're in the conversation for a blue blood if they're not up there already. They're just as good in recent history as Kansas and Duke and Kentucky and all these major programs. So you know what? It's March. I love it. We're gonna be watching a lot of these games, and we're gonna find out on Thursday and Friday, you know, which teams are legit. Even if you skate by and win a game, if you don't play well, that second round's gonna creep up on you this weekend, and so we'll see. But you know, before we take off, I just want to point out Michigan has a chance of playing UMBC, and we
Yeah,
know.
I know.
So just watch out. I know it's a playing game, but if UMBC gets there as a 16 again and plays Michigan, as a Spartan fan and as a Purdue fan, I'd love to see Michigan go down.
Oh, that's the dream, man. That's the dream for Spartan fans or a Purdue fan that saw a 16 seed beat them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel that. I feel that part of you. But I don't know if this is the year. Yeah, but I'm super excited. I think it's gonna be such a fun year. Um, yeah, I don't understand why everybody's overlooking UConn. I see a lot of people having them lose early. I think it makes sense because a lot of people look at, wow, that Big East championship, they got smoked. They look terrible. What do you think Hurley's going to do to them when they get back to UConn? Like they're going to watch film and it's going to be like crazy with the adjustments that's going to happen. You know, like that's what great coaches do. That's why I'm super excited to see a team like Michigan like make those adjustments. They got a loss under their belt. Like I tell people all the time, it's always better to lose than win because you get to learn from it. You get to figure out what didn't I do well, you know, and you actually get to go in there and be like, okay, now we're ready to go. I love your take on like how hot teams can be, and I think that's 100% valid. But Wisconsin losing was probably a great thing for them because they're like, oh, we didn't finish this game the way we should have. You know, like we could have won this game. We had Michigan on the ropes. How do we leave the axle wide open for a game winner?
Yeah.
You know, and like there's so many questions there. That's why like I'm not worried about a team like Purdue who's done it before, you know, like they're fine, you know, but a team like Arkansas, that concerns me a little bit. They're young, you know, they're trying to figure it out. I don't think it'll be a problem with them because of the teams they're playing, but I do think it could be an issue where it's like, okay, um, we got High Point, right? High Point could be super hot, and then Wisconsin's like, man, we just played 3 games in 3 days before this. What are we doing?
Yeah.
You know? That's the concerning part for me. But I'm super excited for this tournament. I want to
Yeah.
give you a chance to respond to that.
I think every year we talk about, you know, this tournament just feels like I'm so excited. Like, and last year I don't even know if it was disappointing. We saw 4 1 seeds in the Final Four, right?
It was
And so
awesome basketball.
it was awesome. A lot of people are here in March looking for these upset games, and it's gonna happen. It happens every year. There's a reason nobody's getting a perfect bracket. We're gonna see teams that you and I are both high on lose. You know, we talked about Iowa State could lose early. I think UConn. I have UConn losing to UCLA if UCLA is healthy. So there's teams that you think are going far and just don't because they didn't
Mhm,
show up that day. And the great thing about March is like it's single elimination. You don't have, it's not an NBA game 7 series. It's not a, you get one chance. And so you got to show up. Coaching makes a difference. There's coaches that have been around for a long time. I know Bill Self has been around a long time. I still don't have the Kansas going far, but sometimes just having a good coach makes a difference, like we talked about. And so I'm going to be rooting for upsets just like the world is. Do I expect us to see? I don't know if Vandy makes the Final Four. I don't know if, UConn isn't necessarily an upset, but I don't know if UConn makes the Final Four. But the beauty about March is you make these picks and anything can happen, and we could see everything we talked about happen or nothing. So it's a beautiful thing about March Madness and basketball. I'm
yeah.
pumped.
I'm so pumped, dude. March is finally back and we're raring to go. So, Drew, I appreciate you coming on, man. This has been fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Appreciate it. And let's
Yes,
go
sir.
watch some hoops this week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up the show for today. Thank you guys so much for listening, watching, wherever you're at. And go like, subscribe. It helps out the show on YouTube. And then give us that follow button on Spotify. It does help out the show. So, appreciate that. And we'll be back at you guys soon. Peace.